Oh, you don't think they move once the enemy moves? Hard to tell, because we're starting to run away. So because our morale is so low, our units are beginning to disappear as they're starting to rout. So we may well lose this battle. It really depends on whether we can do enough damage to push them away. And no, we won. Okay, this is really good. So because that was a rebel... Oh no, they did survive. So very often, if you beat the rebel army, they just disappear. That's not usually how this works. They instead retreat, which is what this little white square with the black X means. They've currently shattered. They're running away somewhere. We could chase them and try to catch them. They are, in fact, running to Zamora, so we're going to chase and try and catch them there. Because we won the battle, we gained some morale. So our army has now actually got more morale than it had at the beginning of that battle. So it's actually been a very good thing for us that we won. Further, the enemy army is going to be on low morale because they run away without any. And if the month doesn't tick over by the time they reach Zamora, they will arrive with no morale. We'll arrive and we'll immediately shatter them. Because they have no morale, they can't fight back. If, however, the month ticks over and it hits May, then they will fight, but it probably won't be a very long fight. Plus, we will also get a morale tick, so we're just going to be getting stronger and stronger. This here shows you an overview of the battle itself. So this is our side, this is their side. We started with 15,000 infantry against their 4,000. We lost 2,600. They lost 2,000. We lost a lot more infantry than they did. We had 4,000 cavalry to their 3,000, but we only lost 400 cavalry to their 2,200. This is a really big loss for them. We can also see what we gained. So they lost 2 points of prestige. They're rebels. That's irrelevant. We didn't gain any. We did gain 0.8 army tradition. So as you fight battles, you do gain army tradition. They gain 10. You do get more army tradition for losing battles than you get for winning. You learn a lot more about war by losing fights than you do by winning. If you win, your military theories and doctrines don't evolve. Whereas if you lose, you're really forced to think about why you lost, and you can start making changes, which are generally going to be positive. And then there's a change to war exhaustion. Neither side suffered any war exhaustion from this. We'll talk about war exhaustion when it becomes relevant. We can also see a comparison of their commanders. So both sides had the same level of shock, and this is actually something else I should have talked about. It's kind of unfortunate that both of these generals are completely identical. They are actually twins. But basically, for every point in a combat stat that you have more than them, that's another +1 in the dice roll. So say we had a level 6, so 6 shock pip against a 0, we would get a +6 on the dice rolls because of the shock pips. So you can really see the difference that generals make because of the importance of those dice rolls. The fact that these are completely equal is hilarious. It's also rare and kind of broke the effect of me talking about commanders. But hey, that's fine. There'll be lots more battles. French involvement. Louis XI of France has seen the weakened state of our country is in and eager to oppose Aragon, has decided to back the faction opposing our succession. This is an outrage! They're rising up in Madrid, so we're going to be a bit sneaky. You don't need to press this immediately. We're going to move into Madrid. We're going to see that there are rebels starting to rise up in the area, and you can keep these open for a month or two. We're fighting a battle there, and then we're going to say, this is an outrage. And now these guys are attacking into Madrid, only we're there first, so we're the defender. Doesn't actually affect us because Madrid's plains, but it could have if it was mountains or something else. Okay, so the Battle of Zamora, round 2. In fact, can we... 1-1-1-1-1. 1-0. Okay, so when it's the shock phase, we can talk more about this. So we won the battle in Zamora. They didn't have enough morale to resist us, so we just won that fight. You guys are moving to Palencia. You guys are moving to Avila. You might be trying to reinforce Madrid. So I think what I'm going to do is move you lot tomorrow to Valladolid. You do need to wait a day between battles. No, Palencia is actually going to be the more important. Because Avila is adjacent to Toledo, so even if I lost that, it wouldn't matter. And it would take them long enough to get to Madrid. This battle will probably be over. So, you arrive there... we moved you here, you would arrive on the 15th, you would arrive on the 12th. You can see that at the bottom. We'll arrive in Palencia on the 12th of May, which means they will be defending Palencia. It's hills, which is a -1 dice roll for the attacker, which would be us because we arrive afterwards. Plus, there is potentially a river crossing. Except there isn't, because we're not actually crossing the river, we start on this side of it. So, we should be okay. Okay, so here we can see the general effect. So Nuno Galvez has extra fire over Nibor. So Galvez is a fire of 2, we're a fire of 1, therefore he gains +1 fire, and it's actually going to be even worse in the shock phase. Oh no, he's got 3, we've got 2. So the shock will, or the general pips will always count each other out. So a 2 and a 2, nullified. 3 and a 2 means it's going to be a difference of 1. So they're getting a little bit of extra fire damage, but because of how early we're in the game, fire damage doesn't really do anything. There's no gunpowder. Most of the damage in this is going to be done during the shock phases, which is what you're seeing. Oh no, that's fire again. We were doing 500 casualties there, which was quite nice. Okay, so we beat this army. They're running away. They're moving to Avila. We are... Yeah, we'll follow. We're going to attack into Avila. Avila is plains, so there's not going to be a defensive penalty. There isn't a river crossing, and there's usually a little icon by the crossed swords to show if there is. And we're just going to keep an eye on this one. These guys are trying to run away, probably to try and intercept this battle, which is again going to be kind of hairy. When do you arrive? 2nd of June. When do you leave? 2nd of June. And it's always a little bit questionable as to who arrives first. Who ticks more quickly? Unfortunately they did, so they got away. But we did kill that other army in Avia, which is going to allow us to just follow up and attack Valladolid. Meanwhile, this battle is going right down to the wire. We do still have 3 regiments in the fight, so we should win it, and there we go. Another huge amount of damage. Now, Nibor has gained a trait. So all generals, if they fight battles, can gain traits. They can have 1 trait, and he's just gained Born in the Saddle. So cavalry have a plus 50% flanking ability, so his cavalry units are going to be more effective. These guys are running to Valladolid, so there's just going to be a massive Barney over here as all of my troops come flowing in. All of their troops go flowing in, and we're just going to have a massive showdown. My units have arrived. So, another little talk about what exactly these lines mean. So everyone that's in the front row fights against those in the other front row. There is flanking, which means that you can attack a certain number of units on the side if you have more men than they do, depending on your flanking ability. So the fact that Nibor is in charge and the fact that he's got the cavalry flanking ability means that our cavalry flanking are going to hit more enemy units. I don't know if that increases the damage it does or it just means that we hit more. But we are hitting with our cavalry both of these guys on the side. The guys here on the edge, not involved in the battle. They can't actually reach anyone. Their flanking ability is not strong enough to reach these on the edge, and there's nobody immediately in front of them. The people in the back row aren't in the fight at all. They're just kind of standing and watching, because it's only the front lines that fight. The exception here is artillery. If you have artillery in the back row, and they will automatically go into the back row, then they will fire at enemies in the front row. They will also provide half of their combat ability to the units in front of them. So artillery provides screening fire as well as additional damage to this side ahead of them, which is why artillery can be particularly powerful, because A, they fire from the back row, which means you have an entire extra row in the fight. B, they provide bonuses to the guys in front of them, and C, they're hitting the enemy. So artillery is strong, particularly late game. Artillery can be absolutely decisive. So we have almost 30,000 men against their 6,000. They are starting to break. We, for a change, have more morale than they do, and they ran away. So they're moving to Avia. However, because there are too many troops here, we currently have 26 weight of soldiers versus 19 supply. We are taking attrition. We're taking 1.5% attrition a month, which means 1.5% of all of our troops here are dying. So we're going to move some of the men away. We're going to send Juan in to attack. We're going to move Trastamara back to Palencia, and we'll have you going after Burgos, actually. I think that's what we'll do. And they arrived with no morale. We just squished them immediately. And then this is the last battle. They're dead. We're just going to go and start sieging this stuff down. There is still an army down here in Sevilla. We'll go and deal with them after we've cleared up these territories. Alright, next thing we need to do is take a look at the disaster. If we hover over this, we can see when it ends. So we need to have at least 1 stability, which is going to take us a bit of time because we need to get enough admin power to get that stability boost, which is, I think, 130. So we need 130 stability in order... 130 admin to get the stability. Rebels need to control less than 1 province. So they basically need to have no provinces. And any rebels which are still out in the field, not necessarily capturing anything, are not pretenders. So we need to have killed any pretender rebels. Artillery also takes double damage when they're in the front row. That is true. So if your front row starts to break and you don't have enough infantry or cavalry to screen your artillery, they will move into the front row where they take out double damage. They also do double damage, but that double damage is usually very, very bad because artillery is really expensive. Just returned from your first bus journey. Not too crowded. Well, I hope the bus was alright. How's the tutorial going? Good so far. We're clearing up these rebels pretty nicely. We'll be sieging down Burgos for a while. Now here's the thing. So we are sieging down Burgos. It is a level 2 fort, which means we need to have 6 units to besiege this. We currently have 16, which means we have about 10,000 men who are not really participating, and they are taking attrition. So forts will always provide attrition to anyone attacking them. This is just damage done over time by diseases or by sallying out or just, shooting people from the ramparts. So what we're going to do is we're going to press the detach from siege button, which is this one. This will pull anyone that's not needed in the siege away. Now Nibor does have a siege ability, so we're going to leave. Okay, this doesn't actually work very well. We're going to move all of the cavalry out, because cavalry aren't very useful in this situation. Then we're going to move enough troops out so that we still have around 6,000 left. Usually keeping like 1 extra, because if you suffer attrition and you go below the 6,000 required, you stop sieging. It just stalemates. And we're going to move everyone else away. Now the reason I did it that way is because I want to keep my general here. It's kind of annoying that you can't decide with the detached siege whether to keep the general or not. And because this general is good at sieging, we want to leave him there. And we're just moving these guys away because we don't want to suffer the extra attrition on them. Okay, that's one. Then we're going to go down here. Hopefully we arrive before Huelva falls. I feel like that's not going to happen though. And actually, now that we're on the siege screen, we can talk about everything else going on. So this here shows you how many regiments you need to siege this down. They do need to be full regiments. This is more 6,000 men as opposed to 6 regiments. We have 6,700, so we're fine. It has a certain amount of defensiveness, which we can see. So the hills are making this fort a little bit more defensive, which is giving +10. However, we have some siege ability, which is reducing the defensiveness. The defensiveness, positive or negative, is modifying how long every siege round is taking. As we talked about previously, I was estimating it would be about a month, but if we hover over the pie chart here, we can see that every siege phase is in fact 1 month, so I was pretty much dead on. It has a base of 30 days, modified up by 6.5%, which is making it 31 days. So every 31 days there will be a dice roll, which will determine what happens in this siege. The dice roll outcome is modified by the number of modifiers available. So it's a level 2 siege, which is reducing the dice roll by 2. We do have a siege general, which is increasing the modifier by 1. We have not breached the walls, so we're not getting any modifier from that, and we're not blockading it. It's not on the coast. So they're not getting naval supply. We also don't have any artillery, which would be another modifier. So these are all the stacking modifiers which can affect it. And if we hover over the percentage here, this is showing the chance of taking the siege every month and for different results to happen. So for the siege to surrender, they need a roll of 20, which is impossible. I guess it's a 20-sided dice. Because of the -2 negative, it means that the highest we can roll is a 19 right now. No, that's not true. Okay, I don't know how the dice works. 1 to 14 is rolled. There you go. So if it rolls a 1, then they will suffer a disease outbreak, which means that the attacking forces take some damage. If we roll a 5 to an 11, which is a 50% chance, then they suffer some supply shortages and the garrison starts to take some damage. If we roll a... No, does that just mean we take... I don't actually know what all the different things mean. I usually just look at this percentage. This percentage is the important one. This is your percent chance every siege phase of that siege falling. So we currently have a -35% chance, so it's not going to fall. Every time this circle fills, another number is added to this. So basically every month that passes, a siege is more likely to fall. a fort is more likely to fall. And the negative traits for the defender are more likely to occur. So they'll suffer more disease attacks, they will suffer more desertions, that type of thing. However, early on, you are more likely to. So we had the supply shortage, which I guess reduces the supply weight in the province. If we show province here, supply limit. I don't actually know what the supply shortage does. I would have assumed it increases attrition, but I'm not seeing how that would be shown. The plus modifier you gain over time is a maximum, though. No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah, it does. 12. That I didn't know. So after you've been sieging for a year, you'll be stuck on that level, but that just means it's going to keep on ticking over and probably a positive roll. You don't get additional siege attrition from unsieging your own land. Oh, really? That I didn't know. I guess because the population is friendly to you, even if the fort itself isn't. Alright, so we won the Battle of Huelva. These guys are running away to Badajoz, so we're going to go and chase them and destroy them. We'll get there before the end of the month, so boom, destroyed. Okay, now we're going to do what's called carpet sieging. So we're basically going to split this army. You can do this with the split in half, or you can just press S, which I'm going to do, and then I'm going to press S again. Basically splitting the army into these smaller component parts. I'm then going to send all of them to Huelva, deselect one part, send them to Sevilla, deselect one part, send them to Cadiz. And this is going to spread all of my armies around in this area, and we'll start sieging everything down at once, instead of just one province at a time as we're doing here in Burgos. And because these don't have forts, we don't need very many men to do this, so I could probably be saving time here. We're not suffering attrition. Our armies are small enough that their supply limits aren't being exceeded. No fort, so we just need to siege it down for one siege round. So the higher your siege ability, the quicker you will take these undefended provinces. But that should work. Meanwhile, the war between France and England is over. England will cede Maine, Alencon, Caen, and Contenin. And we can see that the English territories here in France have reduced, though they do still have some. That wasn't a complete defeat. And we're slowly but surely occupying our territories back. And there we go. These provinces have been secured, so we're going to merge up again in La Mancha, I would say, ready to react to any other offensives that may occur. Meanwhile, we could level up our military technology, and we probably should have done this before this whole thing. No, the rebels would have the miltech as well, so it's irrelevant. So this would increase our morale by plus 0.5, and also our military tactics by 0.25, so quite a nice upgrade. And as you saw, it costs 500 and something military points, which we had plenty of. Now, we are what's called ahead of time, which is what this indicator here means. We're currently 3 years ahead of time. Every year is a 10% increase in the cost. So if we tried to grab military technology right now, it would cost us 553 power instead of 600, which is the base. And then because one of our neighbours was ahead of us in military technology, we do get a cost reduction. So this is one of the anti-snowballing mechanics, whereby if you're ahead of where you should be in the timeline, things get more expensive. This stop you just like spiraling out of control and getting ridiculously far ahead of everybody. Whereas if you are behind people around you, you will get bonuses or what's the word? The amount of price you need to pay is decreased. Come on, what's that? Reduced? No. Discounted. There you go. That's what I'm trying to say. The amount of monarch points that you're paying is discounted. So because one of our neighbours has diplomacy level 4 already, we're paying 5% less. And generally every level that they are ahead of you, that discount will get higher. So if somebody was on Diplo 6, for example, then we would probably be getting like a minus 30% discount on getting Diplotech. So you can be a little bit tactical about when exactly you gain these technologies, because these discounts on such expensive outlays can make an absolutely hefty amount of difference. The other thing which can matter here is every idea in one of these groups that you get makes that group cheaper. So the more military idea groups that we have completed will reduce the cost of military technologies. However, all technologies will get more expensive over time to kind of compensate for that. So if we have lots of military technologies, it's likely that the miltech will get cheaper, but slowly but surely the admin and diplo will get more expensive. Furthermore, some idea groups have ideas which just make technology cheaper as a whole. For example, innovative, which reduces all technology costs by 10%, and then there are various other modifiers and bonuses you can pick up over time which modify that further. And then finally there's innovativeness, and this is something we should probably cover now. Innovativeness is exactly what it says on the box. It's how innovative as a nation you are. It's how many geniuses rise up through the ranks. It's how many great scientists may emerge who aren't advisors. And that basically provides you a blanket discount to all costs. All monarch point costs are decreased depending on your innovativeness. It's not a huge amount. Like, I think at 100% you get something like a 5% discount on all power costs, but that can really add up because you do tend to spend a lot of monarch points throughout the course of a game. So right now, because we are ahead of time in military technology, we are gaining a tiny amount of innovativeness every month because of that. The more ahead we are, the more innovativeness we would be generating. If we fall behind in technologies too far, then we would actually lose innovativeness. Oh, 100% is 10%. Okay, cool. I think I've only ever made it to about 50. So if you start to fall behind others too much, then your innovativeness will suffer a monthly penalty. So generally, if you're playing a nation with a lot of innovativeness, some like Bohemia, like Scotland, Lubeck had a surprising amount, then it can really pay off to try and stay ahead of time to keep your innovativeness high, and then you can basically use that to offset the costs of everything else. What DLC is innovative in? That's a good question. Cradle of Civilization, maybe? No, it's in Rule Britannia. Innovative is Rule Britannia. And then, as you may have noticed there, because I briefly hovered over it, empiricism, which is the second innovative idea, will increase your innovativeness gain by 50%. So it can be a really good idea to grab innovative early if you're a nation that knows that you're going to be kind of very small, very tall, and usually the small, tall nations tend to be the most technologically advanced because they have less stuff to spend their monarch points on. So doing that can be a really good move to get innovative as well, and then you're basically doubling down on that advantage. So innovativeness can be a really, really, really good stat to try and increase, but it's also very easy to just fall behind just like a technology and then start losing innovativeness. And don't worry, there'll be a big pop-up up here which will tell you, you're losing innovativeness, you suck. Innovativeness also gives a -1 tradition decay to Army and Navy. Oh, interesting, I didn't realise. Yeah, there's very often all kinds of modifiers I'm just not aware of. Like the fact that power projection increases Republican tradition. Totally forgot that. Okay, so we currently have no rebels in the field. We're just waiting to reclaim Burgos. And then we will have completed 2 of the 3 factors to end the Civil War. Then we just need to boost our stability, which we are about halfway to. And then at that point, we're free and clear. And we can start thinking about going after other people. Oh, Morocco seems to be having some rebel problems. Isn't that a shame? Their capital has already fallen. And Tangiers. Interesting. And there we go, Burgos has now fallen, so if we hover over this, fewer rebel provinces, less than 1, no spawned pretenders, so we just need that stability. And if we hover over the rebel faction here, we can see that the +7 is having a little bit of an effect. So if we hover over the unrest, we can see that our legitimacy is decreasing unrest by 1.88. Our tolerance is reducing it by almost 5. That's because, again, we have really good state religion bonus from being Catholic. Tolerance of the true faith. But that +7 is getting a tiny bit of a chance to provide unrest. And the more unrest you have in a province, the more penalties you start suffering. So, for example, you will start losing tax income, production income. I think trade goes down. Manpower certainly does. Like, having high unrest, outside of the fact that there's a chance of spawning rebels every month, can be problematic. And the way that this works is every month there's a chance that your faction, a rebel faction, will increase in strength. And then once their strength rating has hit 100%, they will have an uprising and a bunch of rebels will spawn. And every province that has that kind of rebel will contribute to it. So because we have so many low-level rebels in so many different provinces, they are actually providing a 4.3% chance per month of increasing the rebel strength by 10%. Then as soon as the rebel strength hits 100, then rebels will trigger. So right now there's no chance of rebels spawning, and this percentage will tick up over time, and then as soon as it hits 100, boom, rebel uprising. But we should be okay. Like, although there's a lot of provinces that are slightly upset, it tends to be more about the more upset they are, the higher chance of rebel uprising. So right now, not an issue. Could become an issue in the future, though seems unlikely. Castile is a surprisingly stable country.